Hi, welcome to week two. Laynie, welcome to week
Hello.
two. Why do we like week two so much?
Well, we get to keep going from the momentum of Whitman and Dickinson.
Yeah, so week
See
two is
what's next.
structured, thank you. Week two is structured around follow ups so that from Whitman we get a little sampling of Allen Ginsberg and William Carlos Williams. Both of those poets reappear in the course later. Williams gets quite a lot of play in the Rise of Modernism sections, and of course, Ginsberg comes back in week six when we talk about the beat poets. But for this, what we've done here is we've exaggerated some of the qualities of Ginsberg and Williams by making them seem very Whitmanian. So it's not quite true, for instance. I mean, Williams, with his intensiveness and his short lines, can be said sometimes to be Dickinsonian, which is really a great way to introduce the idea that this binarism really doesn't work, even though we want people to experience it as a heuristic or teaching device. Can you say something a little bit about what's good about the distinction between the Whitmanian and the Dickinsonian poets, at least for learning's sake?
Sure. I mean, it's a starting point, and we always need a starting point because there's just so much to
Right,
take in.
right, good.
And it helps you to decide what you think
That's right. It's really
as a
important for
reader.
ModPo people
Yeah.
to react to weeks one and two by going to the forums and saying, I don't think Williams is a Whitmanian poet. You guys are crazy, which is, of course,
Yeah.
what we want, right?
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Dickinsonian poets who,
Okay.
truth be told, kind of more interesting. Can I say that?
You
I
can
guess?
say whatever you
Yeah, I'm
want
a big
in
Williams
ModPo,
fan and Ginsberg fan, but
but I'm more of a Dickinson,
yeah,
Armentrout, Niedeker
yeah.
fan.
So Laurie Niedeker is one, and
Ray Armentrout.
Ray Armitage. So we have one poem called The Way, which, some people think is the best poem in the course. It's so difficult and so Dickinsonian and so marvelous, and it's a meta poem. It's a meta poem. And we would urge you, we're not going to talk about meta poetry right here, but the Dickinsonian tends to be more of a metapoetic experience, and the Whitmanian tends to be a little less. But every poem in ModPo is metapoetic to some, almost everyone is metapoetic to some degree. And we would urge you to go to ModPo Plus, and there are a couple of videos that just describe what metapoetry is. But
I think we should just
you
have
want to
a
define it?
very short definition because maybe this is a new term.
Okay. You want me to start? I'll define it to start.
I mean, I can say something short and maybe
Yeah.
you want to add to it.
Please.
So a meta poem is aware of the act of writing in the poem itself.
Exactly. A meta poem somehow conveys to its reader that it, the writer, the subject, the speaker, or the text itself is somehow aware that it is a text. It's not pretending to be a thing in the world, although it is a thing in the world. It's saying that you are having an experience of reading a poem. Meta poems also refer to poems in them. So a poem that's about a poem, The Way, for instance, refers to some other text. In fact, most of the poems in this course refer to something else. Yeah, so that's metapoetry, and it's really important. Okay, so Dickinsonians and Whitmanians, there they are. Week two. Anything else to add about week two that's exciting?
It's wonderful. I mean, we have so many conversations, videos in the main syllabus. Also in ModPo Plus, there are many, many more. So if we get to a writer that really excites you, you can also go to modpo.org and find all the content about that writer. You don't necessarily have to wait until it reappears in the course.
Modpo.org. If you go to modpo.org, you won't be in the Coursera ModPo site anymore, but that's okay, because there are many connections back to Coursera from there. But if you go to modpo.org and you click the word explore in the top, what do we call it, menu, banner, you'll see explore, and then way on the right, you'll see the word archive. If you go to either of those, you'll be able to search for Whitmanian. You'll be able to search for Dickinsonian, but you'll also be able to go into ModPo Plus, click week two in ModPo Plus, and you will see dozens upon dozens of poems that we've added to the discourse of week two. And for first-time ModPoers, you'll want to go into the main discussion forums and focus on the subforums that are set up for each of the week two poems. But there's also a ModPo Plus discussion forum where you can talk about any of the poems in ModPo Plus. And I thought this would be a good occasion to hold up this book. It's called The Difference is Spreading, 50 Contemporary Poets on 50 Poems. And it is edited by yours truly and Laynie Brown's predecessor, Anna Strong Safford. And what we did is we took 50 poems, almost all 50 are to be found in ModPo somewhere. And the poets themselves are all to be found in ModPo. And the poets that we commissioned, including you, to write an essay for this poem are also almost all of them either ModPo participants or poets who have poems in ModPo. Welcome to week 2. We hope that week 2 gets you ready to drive forward into a somewhat more historical overview. We don't think of ModPo as so historical, but when you get to week 3, you're talking now about the rise of modernism through the example of imagism, one of the many modernist movements of the early part of the 20th century. So weeks 1 and 2 are sort of overview about modes and styles and aesthetics and an introduction to the pre-modern and the modern and the continuity. But weeks 3 through 10 go more or less chronologically, picking up all those strands. Any final thoughts on this?
Yeah, just going through the weeks, even though this is not a history of lit course, you do get a sense of the progression of different major literary movements in this trajectory.
And, you know, a great example of this is Williams, who's part of the modernist generation. Mm-hmm. Laurie Niedecker is a half generation younger. She's part of the so-called objectivists. That's too confusing, but there she is. Mm-hmm. And then you go forward to Ray Armentrout, who is contemporary, who's part of the language poetry movement, which rose into prominence in the 70s, the late 70s, and the 80s, and is very much part of ModPo. Those are 3 poetic generations that come from Emily Dickinson. So that's pretty historical.
So we're not 100% chronological, but it makes it more interesting, we think, to have the immediacy of living poets like Divya Victor in week 1 and Ray Armentrout in week 2.
And who knows, next time you go to the ModPo syllabus, ModPo Plus, or the regular syllabus, you will click on a video, and there's Ray Armentrout here in this room in the Arts Cafe.
Yeah.
And speaking of the Arts Cafe, this is the Kelly Writers House, and if you enjoy this video, you'll be watching subsequent weekly introductory videos, and we'll be standing in different places around the Kelly Writers House, which is an actual house for writers at 3805 Locust Walk. And every ModPo person in 179 countries, we have at the time that we're recording this video, 91,000 people are enrolled, and they're from everywhere. But it's also a very likely thing that people from everywhere travel to the eastern part of the United States and they end up in Philly, and you are welcome to stand here in the Arts Cafe. This is also with the camera facing a different way where we recorded the original ModPo videos. So we consider this our home base, and as far as I know, it is the only massive open online course, MOOC, that has an actual home. HQ, ground zero, we're here. So we invite you to read this book, to get to know us, and we invite you to come to the Writers House. Thank you, Laynie. Week 2.
Thanks.
Yay.